Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters, and today we're taking a look at the double feature PokeFair Scout here with Rose and Oleana's rerun for the rerun of the villain event Lamenting a Millennium, and hear the cheers 2 days later, right? So getting the rerun of the Galar villain arc, we're not getting Leon and Gloria's rerun, but we are getting Rose and Oleana, which is pretty good, right? It's going to be, again, a double feature PokeFair Scout, which is going to be 1.5% rates for Rose and 1.5% rates for Oleana for a 3% total pull rate, which is pretty good, for sure. I would say that any other time, this banner's value is nothing extra spectacular. I mean, it's good, right? These are two good characters, and you're unlikely to regret your decision if you were to summon for these guys, right? But I will say that specifically now, with the release of Gita, the banner has actually gained value, and in a sense, silver too. So let's go ahead and look here. So we're going to start out with Rose. I want to save Oleana for later. So looking at Rose here, he is a Steel-type striker PokeFair with the Tech EX role. Him and Oleana have gained EX roles, Rose getting Tech and Oleana getting Support. These are definitely good EX roles for them, for sure. Rose's stats, 370 attack, 132 defenses, 708 health, 239 speed. About average, about what you would expect. 410 attack, 172 defenses, 800 health. Very slow speed because... or very low speed because, duh, it's a Caparaja. Rose is horrible with speed, but he's a Steel type. That generally is the case. But yeah, that's pretty much it, really. Good stats across the board. The defenses could afford to be a bit higher, but I mean, with the Tech EX roll, all the stats go up, so I mean, there you go. There's your increase in defenses. Pretty good stats across the board. Speed's low, but that's about how Steel types work. Looking at his passives first, which I think are more important to look at here. He's got Pokemon moves and max moves expansion, which when a move is used by the user's Pokemon targeting the enemy, the move becomes all enemies. When the user's max move attacks an opponent, the target becomes all opposing sync pairs, and the power and chances of moves and whatnot, not lowered, right? So basically, all of his moves are AoE, and his max moves, because he does have Gigantamax Caparaja, are also AoE. So he's got AoE sync moves because of this Striker EX, right? AoE regular moves, and then AoE max moves, none of which are split damage, which is very, very strong for sure. He's also got Hit the Gas 5, powering up his moves by 50% and applying an extra gauge. This is some very good power, right? 165 damage on Steel, on Iron Head here. Stone Edge, 180 power, High Horsepower, 190. These are all good base power moves, right? Especially for their gauge cost. So that's definitely very nice there. And then Rose's Results, which powers up his Steel moves and moves never miss. Stone Edge, infamous for its 80% accuracy, right? And obviously buffing accuracy doesn't really help it. I mean, it does help it, but like you need like +2, +3 accuracy to make sure your Stone Edges don't miss. Yeah, now you don't have to worry about that. Your moves will never miss. You're good against Latias, right? Any enemies that buff their evasion or lower your accuracy, you don't have to worry about. That's pretty helpful. And again, buffs the Steel moves. I don't remember what the exact multiplier is. I think it's 50%. 50% makes the most sense. I mean, if we want to go ahead and look at information to help here, it's probably probably pretty far down. I mean, we could probably look. Like, yeah, we got Brendan, and, okay, so sure, we could actually probably look at this, yeah. Rose's Results increases 20%, okay, so not 50%, 20%. Fair enough, I guess, so there we go. 20% power buff to Rose's Steel moves, very, very nice. Thank you, STDK, saving my ass there. Yeah, pretty good stuff, for sure. I don't think it's a direct buff to Iron Head, I think it's a multiplier, per se, right? Which if we look at anyone with Iron Head, yeah, 110 power here, multiply that by 1.5 times. You got yourself what? Pretty much the same. Yeah. The math adds up. Yeah, the maths, which is obviously, and then yeah, just a direct buff here. So this is like equivalent of Critical Strike 2, effectively. So obviously, given Critical Strike 2 as an actual lucky skill, you got yourself 40% in multipliers for your 165 base power Iron Head, which is pretty strong. So that already is very, very nice. Stone Edge and High Horsepower, meaning he's good against 3 types. Trainer move here, which raises his attack by 6 and crit by 3, increases physical moves next by 1 and lowers speed by 2. He just becomes even slower, which, I mean, it's not really that bad of a thing anymore. He's slow. It does kind of suck, because obviously you could run him with Gloria, because Gloria does have the rebuff on her for Steel moves. They're both Galar. It could function and work right, and you could obviously combine them with, like, Neo Champion Bead for another, like, your Galar support, right? And that's a pretty strong Galar setup. Or, also, just being more direct, you can run Palatine's Marnie. Steel rebuff, Galar character, whatever. You know, there's a lot of good Galar Steel options. But he's so slow. And all steel types are slow, so you're going to probably have to sacrifice running these characters, or you're going to have to run a very good gauge support, which, not the worst thing in the world, but you got to consider that, right? Steel types are abhorrently slow, generally. So yeah, that's him at 1 out of 5 effectively. The grid is pretty much nothing, but I'd say he doesn't really need anything in the grid. 410 attack, 138 power Iron Head, 150 base power, 160 base power, moves here, hitting steel, rock, and ground for super effective damage. Obviously, he's got the AoE max moves, right? The max moves steel, G-Max Steel Surge, applying steel damage field, which is not like crazy or anything, but I mean, it is a little bit of extra damage. And then Rock Fall and Max Quake if you want Sandstorm, special defense buffs, whatever. Rose can synergize well with Silver, as stated, because he does have a pretty good power up here with Stone Edge, obviously also being benefited from Silver's master passive, the Johto Circle. I guess the master passive too, just not as much. So the circle plus the master passive, adding to Rose's power on his moves. Pretty helpful there, and of course they both benefit in sand, and again, Rose can set sand with his max rock fall, so you can work around with that. If you want to do good rock damage, that can work, or if you just want to combine them together, you don't have to use rock damage with Rose. You can probably just use high horsepower, because it's the highest power move, or Iron Head after its multiplier, right? Whatever you want to run. So there you go. He does synergize pretty well with Silver. I do like how both characters on these banners synergize relatively well with the main releases of the anniversary. Rose's synergy with Silver is far more inferior to Gita and Oleana synergy, but it's still there. It's not a crazy amount of synergy, but it is something that can be relatively helpful. It's not like they're completely polar opposite strikers. Again, Rose is able to set sand. He benefits from sand. And Silver sets sand and wants sand and extends it too, so that's very, very helpful. Either way, yeah, that's pretty much him at 1 out of 5. He doesn't have any other multipliers, but I'd say if you want to just clear steel, ground, or rock weak stages, Rose is going to get it done. He's got AoE moves, AoE sync move, AoE max moves. The max moves are going to be a great form of burst damage. The +1 physical moves next could be good, right? If you want to save it for a little bit and get more physical moves next from other allies, or if you want to use it after the sync move or something, get the sync buff plus that physical moves next boost, whatever it may be. And again, just overall, these moves being AoE without split damage, plus the 40% power to Iron Head and 20% power to pretty much everything else from Critical Strike 2 is going to be pretty helpful. So, yeah. I'd say he's pretty good for a steel, rock, and ground damage dealer. Nothing crazy to go for, right? I would, again, probably still recommend going for Gita or Silver, but there you go. You can work with that. Going to 2 out of 5, he gets Super Duper Effective 1, Double Down 2, Max Super Preparation, Gauge Refresh abilities, which with that attack stat's pretty helpful. Sorry, the speed stat is pretty helpful. Attack plus 10. I was in sync freebie. I'd say these are probably his best nodes. Just pick up this stuff mostly. Double Down 2 is good for his steel sync move if you're going to be super effective. Super Duper Effective 1 is far more helpful because you do have those 3 types and 3 max moves that you are hitting for super effective damage. Though this doesn't power up this doesn't power up max moves, but still. Still, it's a 10% power buff to these moves here if you are doing super effective damage. If you're doing off-type damage, then obviously not, but still. I mean, this is pretty helpful. Though I probably just wouldn't... If you're going to candy him to 2 out of 5, I just wouldn't. I would just go to 3 out of 5 instead, because a 10% multiplier is not worth the candy, or the extra investment from, like, going on the banner or whatever, right? It's more of something that you'll just pick up from, like, the Mix Scout, a random Lucky Daily, whatever, right? 3 out of 5 is obviously where he gets the most helpful, right? Furious Brawn, Haymaker, Rockfall Power, Surging Sand 3, Steel Damage Field on Opponent Sync Power, G-Max Steel Surge Power, Max Quake Power, Max Countdown 1, both sync nodes. Yeah, pretty good stuff for sure. Also keep in mind the Max Super Preparation at 2 out of 5 is good for then getting a super effective, obviously getting super effective next off of the max move, giving you super effective next for one of these moves, pretty much double strength, so to speak. But again, still not really worth going to 2 out of 5 for. Either way, going to 3 out of 5, yeah, here. We got all this stuff. This is a lot of good stuff. Haymaker and Steel Damage Field on Opponents Sync Power 5 gives you 150% in total nuking multipliers, plus the 2 sync nodes here, meaning your Steel Nuke is going to be pretty decent, especially with the Techie roll obviously powering up the sync move even further. Again, Techie roll is really, really good for sure. I don't know. I don't think his nuke is like an insane. 150% multipliers is fine, but it's not a crazy striker nuke, right? It's good, but really nothing absurd, especially when he's already hitting for AoE damage with his max moves and regular moves anyway. So I don't think you really need that big steel nuke. Probably just better to go for support EX, go for a tech nuke, right? Even with the tech EX roll investment, I still don't think it's an amazing nuke, but it's still good. It's still a good nuke for sure, especially after that tech EX roll. That's definitely a great buff for anyone who wants to nuke with him. But really, I feel that his nuke is probably more helpful in far, far shorter battles, if anything, which is fair, right? There's a lot of pretty good short content in the game, so that much is fair. But yeah, just keep that in mind, I guess. 150% multipliers is fine, but it's not crazy. Probably go for one of his better tech partner nukes instead, or again, support EX, but it's still not too bad of a nuke. And it is AoE, so there's that. Max Quake, Max Steel Surge power, Max Rockfall power, all good stuff. It really just depends on which one you build for. If you're going to build for Steel, Rock, or Ground damage, you would go for the respective node there specifically. Though you could find yourself in a scenario where you don't even need to pick it up because you may just want to go for other things, such as Furious Brawn and Surging Sand. 60% in total multipliers. This is why Rose really wants Sand. That's why Silver is a good partner for him, because they both benefit off of Sand. Silver is able to set Sand, and Rose is also able to set Sand as well with his max move. Good synergy there. And again, you do want the extra Sand for his multiplier, so his moves will be doing far, far better damage. And they're going to be doing good damage. 30% multiplier here, 30% multiplier here, 20% multiplier here, 20% off of Critical Strike 2. That's 100% in just total multipliers for Ironhead specifically, and 80% for these other two moves, which is really, really good, for sure. It does pretty much equate. All of his damage, I'd say, for these moves are about equal. There's not a massive varying difference between all of them. Like, considering the 20% buff for Ironhead, I do think it puts it probably ahead of the bunch, but not by much, right? So I do think that overall all of his damage abilities here are going to be doing roughly the same, probably. But I'd say Steel probably beats it out for 30% flinch, which is really helpful. And then also the Sync Nuke being Steel, and you can also get the Steel damage field. But also do consider you might want to go for Sandstorm, so maybe Max Rockfall would be better to invest in. Either way, it's not bad for sure. Haymaker again, and then Steel damage field on opponent. Max Countdown, this just makes it so your max move doesn't screw up your sync countdown, which could be a valid worry, though I would not... I don't know, I probably wouldn't worry about that too much. You could run like Adrenaline 1 on him if you want to get rid of 20% in the damage multipliers, or you could run another ally that can do sync countdown stuff. Really, it's just up to you for the most part. 4 to 5, he gets Defense Crush 9. This is helpful because, again, his moves are AoE, so AoE defensive debuffs are very, very helpful. He gets another Steel Surge multiplier, which makes his steel damage very, very absurd for a striker especially. A Steel Striker especially. Yeah. Defense Crush 9 for AoE defensive debuffs and G-Max Steel Surge plus 100 powers. Those are really, really pretty good. And then 5 out of 5, he gets Steel Damage Field free moves next, which gives him free moves next when attacking an enemy while Damage Field is in play. This is a little bit more gimmicky because it does require you using the Steel Surge, right? But once you do have the Steel Damage Field up, you get those few turns of free moves next. Is it worth investing in? Not really, because you'd probably want to not use the max move turn 1 or try and play around using the max move for the free moves next. You mostly want to optimize the damage for the max move instead of trying to use it to make it so your gauge is not crappy. Just bring a better gauge unit, generally. And then Impervious, preventing stat debuffs. This does make it so his stats don't get debuffed on his Tram move, which is good, his speed specifically. But overall, probably nothing crazy to invest in. I'd say 4 to 5 is his best, right? Not even, but you don't even need that. 3 to 5 is definitely sufficient. It's very strong, but 4 to 5 giving him the extra power and defensive debuffing ability is really, really helpful too. So, yeah. As for how I would build this guy, it depends. If I want to go for steel damage, I would probably go for the sync nodes. I'm just going to assume 3 out of 5 here. Probably something like this. I don't think double down is necessary. It's probably just easier to skip it. I would really want to go for the damage multipliers, but Surging Sand is just too difficult to pick up realistically. Why does Ironhead move get refresh more expensive? Okay, probably would just have to invest grid energy, I guess, because you would definitely want both sync tiles, or at least one sync tile rather, instead of missing out on them. So probably invest in 60 sync orbs, 60,000 sync orbs to get him to the extra 6 energy where you can pick up one of these sync nodes at least. Yeah, the thing about this guy's grid is that it really does not cater much to being able to pick up all of the St. Nuke stuff and all of the DPS stuff and the max stuff, which would be nice, right? Like being able to pick up all of this would be very, very helpful. Like all of this as well. Like this would be great, but you need 20 energy for that, and I don't think that's happening, realistically speaking. You could also focus just straight up on DPS. Like nuking with him is not like a requirement, nor is it the most optimal thing you could do. So you could just skip out on all of the nuke stuff, pick up the DPS stuff, probably go for the max steel surge. I don't think you could go for the max steel surge here. Yeah, you couldn't go for the max steel surge. If you want to go for like max rockfall, this is the general grid basically. This is something if you want to do DPS with Stone Edge, High Horsepower, or Iron Head, and you don't want to worry about nuking, you could go for something like this. Pick up the max rockfall if you want that power, max quake if you want that power, right? Or pick up max steel surge if you can find a way to it, but good luck. Your best way to get to the max steel surge would be to be able to pick up this node at 4 to 5. But if you do go to 4 to 5, honestly, it's just better to go for Defense Crush, which means you would have to invest, 40,000 Syncorps, which is fine. That's not bad. 20,000 Syncorps. There you go. Big win. Or you would obviously want to, just sacrifice the power there on the max move, whatever it may be. This is probably his best overall grid for any DPS, because Defense Crush 9 is crazy, Furious Brawn, Surging Sand 3. Then at that point, it would just be a matter of which max move multiplier do you want to go for that, have fun. He's a striker, he's meant to do good damage, he can do good steel, rock, and ground damage, pretty good steel nuke as well, especially with the Techie X roll, and then also that flinch is pretty helpful, but sadly he doesn't have aggravation. But yeah, and again, he also works relatively well with silver, so that's nice. Rose, overall, a very solid striker. Nothing, like, absurd. He's not like a top-tier striker, but he is really strong, for sure. He's really strong. But between him and Oleana, I would say Oleana is more valuable. This chick is crazy. Looking at her stats, 336 attack. 336 attack here, 174 on both defenses, 288 speed, 650 health. Those are fine stats, nothing crazy. The attack with the 6-star X, 376 attack is definitely far better. 750 health, 214 in both defenses, and 328 speed. A little bit less attack from Rose, but better defensive ability overall. And then she also gets the Porty X roll, which buffs her defenses far, far more and gives her more HP as well, especially with level 150. Her stats become pretty respectable, especially because she is a debuffer. She is a big debuffer, poison tech. She's fun. She is fun. She's got Gunk Shot, which is a 4-gauge move, 232 power. Just straight up. This is a strong move for being Gunk Shot. It's like a Hyper Beam level. I think Hyper Beam's like 260 power. This is just 30 off of that, which I guess that's a pretty big difference, but still, that's pretty crazy for just being Gunk Shot. Move Gauge Boost, which this does have some usage, but this is mostly niche. Venom Drench, 2-gauge move, lowering enemy attacks, special attack and speed by 1 when attacking a poisoned or badly poisoned enemy. And then her trainer move, which reduces sync countdown by 1, raises attack by 4, accuracy by 2, and crit by 3. And then she has her innate nuke multiplier, which 360 power here, which the lower the target stats are, the greater the power of the move. So she's got power play innate, which is pretty strong. 120% with 18 debuffs. Pretty good. This is where she gets pretty crazy. These passives are great. Status move on opponent, stat down ×3. When a poisoned opponent is... When a poisoned opponent's stat is lowered by the status move used by the user's Pokemon, it is lowered by 3 times the stat ranks. This means that the debuffing from Venom Drench is now -3 to all of these stats, which is very helpful also in conjunction with Gita's -3 defense on her buddy move. Meaning with a combination of Gita and Oleana, you can debuff 4 of the 5 core stats to -6 within 2 turns, depending on how you want to use it. Which is pretty good, right? Going to her other passes, she's got max move hit, team poison rebuff down 1, lowering enemy poison rebuff by 1 when the user's max move targeting that opponent is successful. Yeah, that's also very, very strong. Dynamax, she has G-Max Malleter, which leaves all opponents poisoned. And she also got Max Guard, but I wouldn't. Because obviously this has to be targeting an opponent, and the max move target, and Max Guard targets an ally, so You don't want to do that. You want to use the max Malorder to get the poison rebuff in, which is obviously great. So you get the poison, you get the rebuff in, and then you can start spamming Venom Drench so you can get those debuffs in on all enemies. And then all ally poisons badly poisoned, except in circumstances when an ally leaves an opponent poisoned, it leaves it badly poisoned instead. Gita does regular poison with her Mortal Spins and Blooming Mortal Spins as well. That's regular poison. Oleana turns Gita's regular poison into toxic poison, and also if you use the max move turn 1, or whatever turn it may be, it leaves all enemies poisoned. This is now also bad poison. So instead of having regular poison, you have toxic poison, which obviously is a far better amount of poison, so the enemies take far more damage from recoil, whatever it is, poison chip damage. And then you've also got the poison rebuff. You've got yourself the ability to debuff the attack, special attack, and speed by 3 stat ranks AoE. And then again, combined with Gita's buddy move, -3 defenses on all enemies. That's a lot of debuffing potential. These two are crazy. And even outside of Gita's existence, Oleana's still really good. She's a really good poison enabler. She was the best poison enabler until Gita, because she did still work pretty well with Signet Suit Roxy, right? Because Roxy benefited a ton from Gita's existence, or not Gita, from Oleana's existence, and still does, for sure. Emma benefited a lot. Iris, to some degree, benefited a ton as well. Any poison character benefits a lot off of the existence of Oleana, from her stat debuffing, poison rebuff, bad poison AoE, overall good damage with Gunk Shot, right? 376 base power attack, 232 power move here. It's going to be hitting relatively hard. That's still pretty strong. So yeah, Oleana's existence just made poison a lot stronger in general, and she's definitely a good valuable pickup for sure if you plan to use Gita. So I would probably be eyeballing the banner just for the fact that Oleana exists. So like if you're a big Gita fan, or you want to buff poison, or you want to like get a really strong poison core, those two are really good. Gita and Oleana are pretty crazy. Going into the grid here and just noting at 1 out of 5, obviously there's nothing. 1 out of 5 Gita, God. Oleana is still good at 1 out of 5 for sure. 200 base power move here, AoE defense, attack and speed debuffs. Very self-sufficient in her own buffing. Sync countdown, the AoE poison rebuff. Very, very strong poison enabler, just at 1 out of 5. Dupes mostly help out her damage and her nuke, just to be honest. 2 out of 5, she gets Toxic Power and Vigilant Toxin 2, Potent Toxin 2 for extra poison damage, Gunk Shot accuracy, which is fine, but you don't really need it too much because of the +2 accuracy buffs on her trainer move. But of course, if you get accuracy debuffed or the enemy buffs their evasion, then of course this could be helpful. Post haste 9, sure. Staggering 1, 20% chance to flinch the enemy when attacking them with Gunk Shot. Plus a 20% DPS multiplier when attacking poisoned enemies, which is obviously easy. Vigilant Toxin 2 for a 20% Signet multiplier when attacking poisoned enemies, plus the power play here, so 140% in total DPS multipliers. Not great, but I mean, you do have the Techie X to back it up, so that's good. And Support X if you do opt to give her that role, which, going into that, Oleana with the Support X role is really good because you can opt to use her nuke, which is extremely strong with dupes, or even without the dupes, you can go and use Oleana's nuke, get the Support X in, use another poison damage dealer, whether it be Roxy, Emma, or Gita, whoever it may be, and they'll be getting extra power from Oleana's max move, or not max, well, I guess from the max move, yeah, she'll have the poison rebuff up, right, which is going to be helping their damage, the Support X from Gita, or not, how do I keep doing that? The poison rebuff from Oleana, Support X from Oleana, that, the debuffs, whatever it may be, and you can even use Oleana as a tank, because again, these defensive stats are not like crazy, right? They're not crazy defensive stats, but she also is debuffing enemy stats to -6, both offenses specifically, so yeah, that's pretty good. But yeah, so either way, yeah, Support X role is definitely a good investment because you get that Support X in on top of her already powerful nuke, and even without dupes, then you're already directly powering up your allies' damage, and you're getting an okay nuke in at the same time, so that's nice. That's definitely very, very nice. Okay, so yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it. 2 out of 5, I wouldn't say 2 out of 5 is great. I mean, these multipliers are fine here, especially Toxic Power 2, but like, you're not going to candy to 2 out of 5 just for that, or invest past 1 out of 5 for that, right? You're going to want to go to 3 out of 5. Toxic Power 3, Vigilant Toxin 5, Power Play, G-Max Malorder 100 power, Sync Nodes, Toxic Power 2, Ramming Speed, Move Gauge Boost Pep Rally 2. These are the big nodes here. This is where move gauge boost actually gains value, because not only do you get that +3 gauge, you also get the pep rally for the +2 speed on all allies, which helps out with gauge management, because some of these poison characters are not like slow, but it does help out with overall management, because Oleana herself is a 4 gauge move user, so you do want to be careful of that. Ramming speed, it does directly help powering up in that too. This is like probably her not worst node, but least valuable node. Not really even that. It's just it's a quirky node. We'll say that, because you do want speed buffs, but you also may not want to pick up pep rally on the move gauge boost, especially considering that she's already wanting to use Venom Drench to debuff enemy stats, Gunk Shot for power, trader move, max move, all that stuff. You may not really want to use the move gauge boost, so keep that in mind. So yeah. Plus that, she's got Virtual Toxin 5 and Power Play, 120% multipliers, combined with her already innate nuke of Power Play for a 240%. Virtual Toxin 2, that's now 260%. Virtual Toxin 5, 310%. That's pretty crazy. That's very, very crazy in the power department. Her attack set's not bad either. Yeah, that's a very, very strong nuke. Without the easy access to debuffs that she has from her Venom Drench plus Gita's Buddy move, you're already doing pretty good. And obviously their synergy with Poison Zone and Poison Rebuff is really good. Toxic Power 3, Ramming Speed, Toxic Power 2. That's 80% in total DPS multipliers as well. Critical Strike 2 buffs that to 100%, meaning Gunk Shot is going to be hitting hard. Whenever you start to use Gunk Shot after using Venom Drench and the Buddy move, you're going to be starting to do some very, very good damage. So that's some pretty nice stuff to work with there. Obviously, there is the problem with Pep Rally and Ramming Speed, but that's pretty much the only problem this character faces. I mean, maybe there's a little bit of time to use, Venom Drench instead of doing damage, using the max move, whatever, but, like, that's a pretty small problem, all things considered. And I wouldn't even say that her grid is necessary past 3 out of 5. You get Ruthless Toxin on Gunk Shot, which is just a random debuff, not really necessary. Max move team defense down 2. If you combine her with Gita, that's also unnecessary. Though this could be pretty helpful if you want to empower her nuke without Gita. And also consider, even without Gita, Oleana is very, very strong. And then 5 out of 5 Soften Up 1 is useful, but also not really that fantastic, because the big thing with Soften Up 1 is that it's useful for strikes, because their sync move is AoE, there's 3 chances for the move to not crit. Not so much on text. You're single targeting an opponent, you just have to land that 80% chance. That's not that bad. And then Venom Drench, Topher, sure, free moves next, I guess. Does help out with gauge problems, but also so does just picking up move gauge boost pep rally. I would say 3 out of 5 is her best overall grid pickup. Not that you can pick up everything. Sadly, you cannot. I do wish you can. Or I do wish you could, but sadly, can't have everything. Best thing you're probably going to have to do is just sacrifice ramming speed. Pick up her full nuke, get rid of the max Mallet or power, because you're probably using it turn 1 or 2 anyway, and pick up as much DPS stuff outside of that as possible. Virtual Toxin 2, Virtual Toxin 5, Toxic Power 3, Toxic Power 2, Power Play, Innate Power Play. A lot of DPS and nuke multipliers that makes Oleana look really, really good. So, yeah. With dupes, Oleana's crazy, and even without them, she can look pretty good as well, being a good enabler for Gita and other poison characters. So overall, there we go. There is the overview for the double feature PokeFair Scout with Rose and Oleana. Both very, very strong sync pairs. Rose being a great steel-type damage dealer, being able to do rock and ground damage as well. And then Oleana being an amazing poison enabler, plus good damage, as well as a good nuke. Overall, just very, very good for any poison setup and any Gita users. I do like that these characters can also synergize with the new Master Fairs, so their reruns being now is very, very helpful for new players who may want to get some good teams going with them. Overall, I'll see you later. I hope you all enjoyed. Good luck if you are going to go for these characters. I'm not going to say the banner is extremely valuable, but it is definitely really, really solid, especially if you want to buff Gita and to a lesser extent Silver. So do keep that stuff in mind and whatnot, right? But yeah, I'll see you all later. I hope you all enjoyed. Good luck if you're going to be summoning.